As I start this recording, I am immediately thinking I'm recording voice only during a walk at night in order to accompany it with some gameplay video. The problem is, I don't even know why I had the gameplay videos that I had previously for these sorts of vlogs, and I don't know if I have any more. So I might have to record some new stuff, but that presents a bit of a problem. My time is kind of full. All of my non-work time is spent with Exis or on the house or taking care of problems that keep coming up. But if I get to the point of free time, it's, again, not usually spent playing games. Now, I am playing when I stream, and that's good, but that's already used. I will try to stream again from the home this weekend, we'll see. But other than that, the only other game I'm playing is one that I'm recording for Project Raider. So I'll have to set aside some time to record some gameplay for you guys for this. So, dear Brian, I had a memory the other day. What was it? Oh, it was one where I goofed up. So I remember this came up because Exis and I were talking about going to Japan and what we want to do when we go there. We're actually planning a trip next year, but it's sort of a wait and see thing at the moment. But one of the things that I want to do is pick up as many Japanese consoles as I can. Old ones. You don't really have to worry about region exclusivity as much these days. And I'm not opposed to getting one of the new ones overseas, but I'm trying to not only stretch my dollar, but stretch my suitcase space. So the plan is to go over with with 2 bags each. But since we're just going to be roaming from hotel to hotel for a lot of our trip and picking up toiletries over there, we actually might be able to carry all our clothes and stuff in a carry-on. And since the entire focus while we're there is not going to be, it's going to be out and exploring and eating and exploring and buying and exploring, we're actually going to be leaving laptops and all that sort of stuff at home. So it's actually feasible to go ahead and just have everything in the carry-on and personal item, and then we'll have 2 pairs of suitcases each. Well, 2 pairs of suitcases. I'll have a set where I put the next biggest one into the biggest one with hope you guys didn't have to hear that. But anyway. And the only thing that's going to be inside the smaller suitcase is some bubble wrap, other packing material. And she's going to do the same. And we intend to come back. If we need to pay to check a second bag, we will, but it'll be cheaper shipping than putting all we got together inside of a box and shipping it. So, and much safer and quicker. And what I want to load up on are a bunch of old systems. I want to get an old Famicom. I want to get a Super Famicom. I want to get... I was coming up with a bunch of lists. And actually, Super Famicom arguably should be pretty low on the list because there's a little trick on American Super Nintendos. If you press your finger down in the door to open it up, and you see these two little tabs in there on the back side, if you just get some needle nose pliers and wiggle those off, bam, that's it. You can play Japanese games on your system now. That was their only copy protection, or region locking, was just a couple tabs of plastic. But anyway, I was thinking that maybe the system that I should prioritize is the Saturn. Because for me, even though I played at least one kind of Atari and potentially something else before we got the NES, I sort of considered the NES to kind of be the beginning of that little life cycle of game systems that I base everything else off of. And so when it comes to home consoles, not handhelds, from the big four, and not counting in between generations, which has only recently kinda really been a thing. They've had some refreshes before, like the SNES Mini type thing, but the only big system that I missed, I guess technically two. I did not have the first PlayStation, and I guess you could say I never got the second one either, because I married into it. But I have also since divorced out of it, so I don't have either of those. That said, I have one of the original, the 60 gig PS3s that had backwards compatibility with both of the previous generations, so I am covered in that front. But the big one, the one that I really wanted but didn't get, was the Sega Saturn. And so I kind of wanted to prioritize that, because even though it didn't have the best lineup here in the States, it likely would have been a lot better over there in Japan. But I do intend to get a few systems and get at least one game for each of them, a game that did not have a Western release, and bring them home. Put them into this new game room project I got going. But after that conversation with her ended, I started to think about the Saturn again, and I remembered there were actually only two places that I played the Saturn back when it was a thing. One of them was at the youth center on base. I remember, and I'm absolutely going to be looking to see if they have this when I go over there. I mean, it's fucking Akihabara. I will likely be able to find it. If not the store I buy the Saturn in, then the next. But I fucking loved going to the youth center, jumping on the couch and putting Fighters Mega Mix into the Saturn. That roster was huge. The gameplay was a lot of fun. So many hidden characters. I think Lion was the guy that I kept playing as. But anyway, the other time was to your house, when I would go over, and I remember after, and so this was years after you would have had this game, but after you introduced me by giving me a bootable disc. The only kind of piracy I ever took part in was your fault, I guess. But after you gave me a bootable disc of Ikaruga for the Dreamcast, that I proceeded to get better and better at, but still shit. And now I'm back to being terrible today. You introduced me to Radiant Silvergun on the Saturn. and you told me that that was actually the predecessor. And so it kind of made sense the next time I booted up Ikaruga, and it was Project RS2. Now that filled in a hole that I had always had. So you were talking about how it was a game that rewarded you for repeated plays by sort of having an experience system for your weapons. And there were, if I'm remembering correctly, there were 3 main weapons or 3 main weapon groups. And the more you used them, the more they would level. And then when the game ended, whether you beat it or not, you were able to save. And that's how you would keep building up your process. The guns would get stronger and stronger, and that was important because that would allow you to get further and further in the game next time. But it was going to take a long amount of time to actually max them all out. And I can't remember if we discussed, if you're beating the game by the point that you've got them all to, say, level 20. I do remember you telling me they maxed at 99, although I hope I'm not misremembering. But anyway, if you're beating the game by the time everything is 20, is there a reason to keep leveling? I don't know. But anyway, you let me play the game. I died, and I thought you weren't there, but I thought you wanted me to save to add what I just did to your experience. And I ended up overwriting a save. A gaming sin. So I hadn't thought about that in a while. And now talking about going to Japan again, this time with Exus, through a really roundabout way, ended up bringing that back up. So that was pretty neat. So I'm actually enjoying, I've been doing nighttime walks for a long time now, living down here in Arizona. However, it is 68 degrees outside in Chandler. I did not expect to go below 70, even at night, even at going on 3 o'clock in the morning until October. But this is good. This is nice. This is fun. I'm not worried about sweating anymore. So, doing a weekly stream on camera with Mike from the Chandler room has had 2 consecutive weeks of either very few or 0 dropped frames. That's uploading at 1080p, only 30 frames because that's all the Switch is doing anyway. But uploading a full 3 megs per second. So that's good. That's a strong, decently strong 1080p signal. Maybe I could buff it up. I wouldn't need to go any more than 3500, but it seems okay so far. I actually watched the first one. I just had it playing in the background at work the next day, and that helped a lot because I was able to tell just by listening and just by having the tiny little window open, I could tell that there was always movement and that the sound had cut out. So even though that was the stream that had 16 drop frames somewhere, usually a drop frame doesn't happen on its own. Usually they come in chunks. I couldn't even tell you where that was at. So, and one of the things that you don't notice about games until you're doing something like this, where you're using it for a different reason, is a very nice thing about that game. It's a UI thing. It's something that I've known about for years, since I was a kid. when I was using DVD menus, I remember there being some really good ones and some really bad ones, because some of them, the cursor doesn't cause any movement. Well, a lot of them, the cursor doesn't cause any movement, and some of them, a select few, you actually can't tell what the cursor is on without moving it. Now, when Blu-rays came about, they became a lot more animated with their cursors and what they were able to do with it. And so, but that still was up to whoever was putting the disc together to actually do that. But that's been something that I've been aware of since back when DVDs were becoming a thing. This game has that on pretty much every screen where you are in control. The cursor is spinning, or what you are on, or what you have selected has a light that's circling around it or something. There's always something, and that's just good UI design overall in general. But in this specific case, it helped because as long as I could see movement out of the corner of my eye, I knew that even though the stream was playing, it wasn't buffering. So dropped frames isn't the only indicator that there was something wrong on your guys' end, on the viewer end. So this was a helpful watch. And that part about that game, Brigandine, was very helpful. A fringe use case that they were not thinking about at all. They were just thinking about putting together a good UI. And they did. I did have the idea of doing a second stream from home, but there's only one real case where I want to do that, and that is if I can get Exus involved, because we spent enough time apart already, and it would also solve another issue of, because of the fact that I keep myself busy with other projects, and she's got her own stuff going on with cosplay and the like, that we really haven't been able to play games together a lot. Well, we've spent some money recently on some tabletop games, and we're kind of brainstorming what we want to do with the new systems when they come out. Is it getting one of each? Is it getting two of one of them? Which one of them? Yeah, it doesn't matter to me that Sony usually has the edge when it comes to exclusives, because I don't like the exclusives. Horizon is the only thing that I can think of. I don't care about the God of War franchise. I don't care about the Uncharted franchise. I definitely don't care about Last of Us. I don't care about so many of their exclusive movie games that the exclusives list is just not a factor for me. And if anything, you can argue that the second Senua game on the, I'm calling it Scarlet, I don't give a shit, is something that I would miss out on if I did not have one of those. But it's something that we're serious about, because normally you would think in order to be able to play everything, you get both. But again, when that exclusives thing is not as much of an issue, now the whole, well, if we either get two X's or maybe an X and an S, then I would have, if I brought the X up with me, that would be a weekly chore. But anyway, if I brought that up with me, then I would have backwards compatibility with other games if I were to do other games on stream and from the Chandler room, and then potentially other game recordings for Raider or whatever else. But also we would be able to play, and we could schedule a night where we play, and sometimes that may even cross over and be the game that we stream, or that I stream for the week from the Chandler room. So, ongoing talk. But there's also, we've talked before about how a lot of the games that her and I both have interest in just aren't multiplayer. And so we've talked about how there's still enjoyment that we can each have from just being there while the other person plays something. So I have no problem being in the room when she's playing through. I'm just pulling an example out of my ass, but while she's playing through Breath of the Wild, because then I don't have to deal with any of that game's bullshit. But I can still watch her play, we can still talk about it, and I could be doing something else at the same time. And I know that I've got single player games that she's been very interested in watching me get through. But it's possible that these potential weekend streams can be like that too. One of the things that I've had a desire to do is to go back to old games that I streamed before and did not finish and pick them up and keep going. Dishonored keeps coming to mind. I remember starting Dishonored, and it was far from the first time I had played it. But then I dropped it when the second one came out because I didn't finish in time. So then I started the second one, but I didn't finish that one either. And I don't remember why. It might have been one where I ended up going home for my dad's wedding not that long after it came out, and so I just didn't pick it up when I came back. But I remember starting it again kind of recently, the first one, because I was restarting my Ghost playthrough. So, especially when the gameplay is kind of slow like that, because I want to pick up those achievements. Especially when my gameplay is kind of slow like that, it could easily be a thing where she's watching the game with me, helping me figure out different ways of doing it. So it could be something like that, and then I could get through Dishonored 2, which is a game that I have not finished even on my own, and I'd very much like to, but if we did that together, it would still be neat, because it would be us experiencing this game and this story that we didn't know about, and then I could figure out what the whole replay value of that game is. So, as far as the house goes, that kitchen sink flooded underneath. I fixed the leak, but we have a freaking deductible on the homeowner's insurance for getting the water damage fixed up. They've torn up flooring, they've torn up carpet, they've torn up linoleum, they have ripped out a floorboard, they've drilled holes in the wall, they took out the toe kick for the cabinets so that they can dry out underneath there, and all that's got to get repaired. They're talking about repairing a portion of the wall and then repainting, which is covered. But what makes it weird is that, I don't know if I shared pictures with you guys yet, but I just did a bunch of repainting in the house, so that makes it a little awkward, because technically I have more leftover paint, but I have that so that I could touch up spots that need touching up, so that I can make the corners better as time goes and so on. So I can show it to them. I can tell them it's this, exactly this. Bought it this year, so you don't have to worry about it not being available anymore. But I think the correct call is they're supposed to go and pick up their own quart or whatever. But I mean, the whole rest of the house that they can see has that paint scheme, so they should be able to match it without me having to go in there and finesse it again. But the game room, guess I should talk about the game room. So that's just the next big project for me, for us. If she wants to get more involved, she's already been helping me a lot with clearing things out, but right now the discussion is exactly how to implement this image in my head. I think it's all doable, and it'll be damn impressive, but it's just working out the little details, because especially coming from having worked with her dad and knowing a lot about how cabinets and cases are made, there's that extra know-how, but also knowing that there's stuff that you don't know when it comes to doing these sorts of things. So part of what is going to be in there is a built-in bookcase, floor to ceiling, wall to wall, but not that simple, because of course it's got to be complicated, because I want to use it. We have a problem with storage in the house. We don't have any closets anywhere outside of the bedrooms, so we don't have a nice place to put the vacuum, for example. We would have to stick it out in the garage, but the garage itself has got plenty of crap in there. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to use this idea in my head as a way to make sure that all extra gaming stuff, the only thing that would be out in the living room is the current generation systems, and what is current generation is about to change. So I want all the stuff in the room, all old systems, all old games, all old controllers, all old other accessories, all collector's edition boxes on display, all gaming related figures that we have in there and displayed, everything. And that is going to be a fucking endeavor, but floor to ceiling, wall to wall, not quite ceiling, but I'll get to that. And then that top shelf portion of it, the way I envisioned it, because it's just a small bedroom, is extending that shelf out. So just picture a small bedroom in your house. Imagine a floor to ceiling, but not quite ceiling. Give it about 4 inches. Let's say it finishes about 3 to 4 inches from the ceiling. And that top shelf, make that top shelf whatever you want. 10 inches, 9 inches, 12 inches, 15 inches, whatever. But now imagine that just that top shelf continues around the whole room, even over the doorway, even over the closet. And just use brackets as a way to keep it secured. And it would come out, not as far, doesn't need to come out as far as the full depth of the cabinet that's going to be in the wall, but that's just a really neat look to me. You'd always, in a way, it's sort of like a soffit, except this one would serve a purpose because it would be a shelf that you would be putting stuff in. And I came to the realization that the idea came about as I was standing in the room and I saw how much crap there was to make room for. And knowing that I intend to go to Japan and get even more stuff that I would like to hook up and have available for use. And I thought there's just not enough room. Even a floor, even a full wall being covered, there's just not enough room. So that's where this idea of having that big shelf going around came from. And it was a thing that ended up, the more I thought about it, the better it looked in my head, but it just kept solving other problems. So lighting the room is an issue because it's just one of those homes where there are only 2 rooms in the entire house, the living room and the master bedroom, that even have a light hookup in the center of the ceiling. The rest of the rooms, the light switch is tied to a switch or to one of the outlets so that you have to power with lights, with lamps. And I fucking hate lamps. Hate them. So my thought was to put a good powered rope light up there. And you wouldn't see the light directly, but it would be lighting the ceiling up real bright. And if we paint the ceiling a reflective color, that would be even better, especially since what could also go up there, powered and controlled separately, could be an RGB light, black light, rope light that goes all the way around, anything we want. We can stick anything we want up there because it'll all be hidden. And so that shelving that's going all the way around the room now provides us with that as a nice option, and that's excellent. And then it's also, when you walk into the room, the closet that's built into the walls on the left, so there's this small little bit of an entryway that it only goes in about as far as the door does, but that means that there would be this little cut in that you would have to do, and that shelving would need to swing into it, wrap around, and then go back out. And my thinking was that over that portion of it, it would actually be kind of neat to have something that you could enjoy looking directly up into, and then just put a piece of clear plastic down that fit nicely into that shelving area. And then just a nice little extra thing, so you were walking underneath something until you actually came a couple steps into the room. So it's just planning this out is really fun, but there are unknowns. So how exactly I'm going to power everything in there cleanly, how I'm going to make it to where the back of everything is actually accessible so that I can make changes when needed. All of that is important. And when you start to make these sorts of changes and concessions to make sure that you're sort of future-proofing it, then you start to realize that, this thing that I thought was only going to come out a foot or 15 inches from the wall, well, now it's going to come out further for this. Now it's going to come out further for this. So, for example, it was actually a different wall over on the left side that I had intended to do this on, but the problem there was it was only 8 1/4 inches before the wall over on the left end of it started to do its little corner turn for the closet. So I thought, okay, well, that'll be as far as the shelves come out, except for where the TVs are going to go. So in order to get my planning underway, I took measurements of all of the systems that are going to be going in there. At least all the ones I own. I don't know what the differences are for the Japanese ones, but either way, I would have a good range. And the 64 is more than 10 inches deep. The 360 is deeper than that. The PS4 is deeper than that. There are plenty of much deeper systems than 8 1/4 inches. So right there was already a problem. And so I started to think, well, I guess if you think of it like this, let's say that we put the TVs in the middle and those come on, that'll be deeper because it has to be, because the CRT that I have in there is 20 inches deep on its own. So that'll be deeper out of necessity. So we'll have the center low portion of it come out as far as is needed for the TVs to be workable. But then the shelves to the left, right, and directly above the TV area, well, we'll just put all those systems there. The shortest route for the cables, and that shelving will come out further, but not as far as the TVs. And then the shelving to the left of that, to the right of that, and then on top of that, which is the stuff that would wrap around the walls and the ceiling, that'll be restricted to the 8¼ deep for to make sure that it doesn't stick out past where the wall turns for the closet. And it's workable. That was fine, but I started to think one of the things that I'm trying to do with this is to display all this stuff. And if you do a design like that, there's actually no position you can stand at, not even directly in front of it, and as far back as you can in a small room, and actually see everything. So I thought if I moved it over to this other wall, I lose something like 5 inches on width, and I would need to cover the window, but that's fine. It's kind of covered right now anyway. But I don't have that depth problem anymore. So if I want to come out 15 inches everywhere, I can do that. And I probably will. And then just come out a little bit further for the TV in the middle, the TVs. So this is going to be a pretty involved project. We didn't do built-in bookcases or any crap like that when I was working at the shop. So this is different. This isn't just something that I can just let them know what I need and order it. But at the same time, I know that I want to do this differently than just going to a hardware store and getting a bunch of wood and slapping it together. No, I want to choose my colors, I want to choose my banding, and I want it to all look uniform and have it all together at the same time. So that's the planning kind of stuff that I'm thinking about right now. And then again, being able to make changes. The current thing that's in my head, and it's gonna sound weird, but the part that comes out for the CRT to sit on in the middle, it's gonna have 2 drawers underneath it. And I want there to be a weight-bearing divider in the middle. And the reason why is because on the top, I want to be able to put the TV on a slider, and I want to manage the cords in such a way that when I slide the TV out, I don't pull anything. And I want to be able to stand on that center divider as I climb my way back behind to get to an open space that I have back there, probably 15 inches deep itself, just so I have room to stand, turn, and manage all the wiring. So even though I've moved the shelf over to this other wall, I do still intend for all of those other reasons to have the systems be around where the TVs are, and that's going to keep everything right within my reach. So if I can just stand back there, then I can do everything. It might involve her helping to feed cords, but that one thinking about things like that, thinking through how am I going to make changes later. And that's sometimes you got to come up with things like that. And so that's another thing that's just going to further change how the thing is designed. If I need even just 12 inches back there to stand and turn around and do what I need to do, that means that center portion that holds the TV is going to be coming out that much further. And the parts with the systems, now those need to have, say, 6 inches where they come out from the wall, because they're going to have cords sticking out the back. And I probably shouldn't bring the other ones all the way back to the wall, because the outlets that are on the wall are going to need to have room for the plugs to come out and turn where they need to go. So all of that keeps making the room shrink and shrink and shrink. And what could end up happening is that when I figure all this out and I try to think about the feasibility of getting a futon or a love seat or something in there, and then trying to get little nightstands next to it, and then a separate thought I had of putting comics in the room as well, though that might be solvable by aggressively modifying the closet, then I might find out that there's just not enough room to do what I want to do. You know, just because you can picture it in your head, once you go through all that planning and actually have everything down on paper, you realize, oh shit, I guess not. I guess I'm going to have to cut back if I'm going to have this work. So it's fun, but there are other things that I have wanted to do with the house that I just could not do. So we will see. Yeah, we've got to slow roll it anyway. Because this stuff costs money. So I've got that. I've still got changing out my computer's tower, making it a piece of furniture essentially that I still want to do. And again, I mean, we're talking about it. We're not sure. I'm actually in the mood right now with where I am with game playing, and the same with her, where we don't feel rushed. It's just that if we see over the next few weeks that we really do take making sure to sit down and take time to play games with each other seriously, then it'll be worth it to have these systems early, especially if we can then turn around and stream them together. Her on her channel and me on mine. So we will see. So Brigandine is a lot of fun. I like the planning involved. I like having it's absolutely up my alley. I have always been interested in tactics, but I've never felt the best about a lot of the tactics that have been coming out lately, just because it is kind of boring doing a square grid all the time. Especially when, as a kid, my dad exposed me to games where it was not like that, where they used hex. So that just opens up a lot more strategy. There are many ways to get in there. I like I don't remember what it's called, but the presence system or something like that. I like it and I hate it at the same time, but the thing where you can't just keep moving through a battlefield, you can't just go running through a gap that exists between all your enemies, because in reality they would just turn and take a swipe at you, all of them, and you'd be running through a gauntlet So what this game does is it restricts your ability to move through those spaces, and you might get only one tile a turn. That's just an example. I don't remember the history of the game. I just like that I was able to pick one up on that limited run game site and support the developer for what is absolutely a fun game. I don't know if I'm going to play through all 6 campaigns on stream, just because it's going to take a while to get through one. I might do 2, but I've also got a lot of games to play, and limiting it to one game a night or one night a week is really limiting. So I just need to try to do better at starting the stream earlier so that I can stream for longer and that more people can show up. And the longer I stream, the more gameplay that is, and the more we can get through. So, anyway, I guess that's that. Car stuff picked up for a while, but it's going to quiet down again soon. Just because I would work Monday through Friday up here, go home, go home Friday night, come back up Saturday night for a car event, drive back home Saturday night, and so that would take up half a day. And that just got tiring. So the guy that's running all the events that I'm going to, he told me that if there's ever a proper car show or a meet that is special for some reason, that he'd let me know. So taking a break from going to every meet every Saturday night and that still wasn't even everything. There's cars and coffee every Saturday morning. There are meets every Friday night. There are meets on other nights of the week. I wasn't even going to those already. So I'm going to take a little while. I'm going to work on see if I can get a couple upgrades on the car going. Not engine-wise, but just cosmetic. And then next time I come up, it'll be looking better than last time. So anyway. Sorry I overwrote your game save in Radiant Silvergun all those years ago. I felt really bad about it right away. And it made me think, is this how younger brothers feel? Because I was the oldest. And I know that I'd be absolutely pissed off at one of my brothers if, and they overwrote something. So, yeah. Sorry about that, buddy. Anyway, I'm gonna get in, pack up, and start heading home. And I'll talk to you again soon.